Hello everyone, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving, or whenever you happen to watch this video. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to be talking about a disappearance that occurred in Oregon almost 20 years ago in 2006. At the time, it led to the greatest search that the state of Oregon had ever had. As always, I will have credits and sources in the description if you feel to do or would like to do further reading. This case all started out on an innocent trip from California. This young couple was living in San Francisco at the time. A young couple by the name of James and Kati Kim. They were both in their early 30s. They had two young daughters. One was only 7 months old and the other one was just about to turn 4. The family had traveled up from their house in San Francisco to Seattle, Washington. They met with some friends, had Thanksgiving. It all went well. They had a great time. After Thanksgiving, they left their friend's house to head to Portland. They were going to do some shopping and visit with some friends. Here's a picture of James at the time with his two daughters. James was a very successful guy at a very young age. He was working for one of the networks. He was a very likable guy. He had a lot of friends. After leaving their friend's house in Seattle, they headed out to Portland. It took them just under 3 hours. They met with some other friends in Portland that they hadn't seen in a while. Then they decided to do some shopping. The shopping went a little longer than they had expected. They didn't end up leaving Portland till roughly 5 p.m. that night. The couple had decided that before heading directly home to San Francisco, they were going to do a stopover at this lodge in Gold Beach, Oregon. The Tu Tu Tun Lodge. It's a beautiful place. It's right on the coast. It's only about a roughly 5-hour drive, or what they thought was going to be a 5-hour drive. Here's a picture of it. As you can see, it's quite beautiful. On the evening of November 25th, 2006, they headed down Interstate 5. As you can see on the map, Interstate 5 is a pretty straight shot. It goes down through Salem, Eugene, but then as you can see, there's a breakaway where you can go 2 different ways. It was right around Roseburg where they missed one of their exits. At the time, they didn't think it was that big of a deal because they just thought they'd go the other way. If you look at the map here, you can see this intersection in Roseburg is kind of confusing, so people do tend to get lost or go the wrong direction there. So the Kims just continue down Interstate 5. It eventually leads into the town of Merlin. They stopped there, they had dinner. Despite having a GPS and maps, James stopped at this gas station. They picked up some candy bars, some soda. He also wanted to ask the clerk for clarification on the directions because they had taken a wrong turn and he wasn't exactly sure of this route. It also had started to rain, so they just wanted to make sure they had the most accurate information they could. When James got back to the car, Kati could tell he was upset. She asked him what was wrong. He said, well, this clerk didn't really seem to understand what I was asking. He did give me directions. They looked at the directions that this clerk had given them, and to the Kims, it looked like it was basically a straight shot across the mountains right to where they were trying to get to. If you were to look at Google Maps today, it would give you either a northern or southern route. However, this clerk had given them a route basically taking them all the way through Siskiyou National Forest. Here's a picture of the map. Little did the Kims know, and this clerk failed to mention, that this road would not be advisable for winter travel because it's very narrow. It goes through many curves. It's mountainous terrain. It's also unlit. There's no street lights. Here's some pictures of what it looks like during the day. So in the summertime, yeah, it might be a nice drive. This was right before cell phones, smartphones became mainstream. So they had several cell phones with them, but none of them could pull up things like Google Maps. They were carrying this Atlas, which at the time was a popular thing to have, the Randall McNally Atlas. They were driving a Saab 2006 station wagon. It did have all-wheel drive, so they weren't really concerned. However, they really didn't know anything about this road that this clerk had led them to. In the beginning of the trip down this road, Kati said she saw a snowplow parked on the side of the road. This initially helped put her mind at ease. She thought, well, if there's plows here, these roads are obviously maintained. She then noticed, though, that the only other vehicle that was on the road had turned around. The storm they were driving through had also intensified. It was raining much harder. There was lightning. It was at this point the couple had driven over this hill, which seemed like it immediately had started snowing, and there was tons of snow on the ground. Kati Kim also said this was the first time that she saw a sign saying caution, drifting snow 6 miles ahead. As they continued to drive, they found themselves in blizzard conditions. They were also driving through very heavy snow. Let's look at the map. So they're driving west on this Bear Camp Road, or 23. The snow is very deep. They stop where that number 1 is, and James wanted to turn around. Katie thought it was too dangerous. Remember, look at these roads. You have to imagine them in pitch blackness with roughly 1.5 feet of snow, with it still snowing roughly 4 inches an hour. James actually had to open the car door in order for him to see. They backed down to where they originally saw that sign. At this point, they tried using all 3 of the cell phones that they had. They tried calling 911. None of them could get through. None of them would get a signal. Then, unfortunately, they decided to take this road, which looked to them as if it would get them down off of a higher elevation. That road there that's labeled Road 34-836. It's actually a logging spur that winds deeper into the hills towards the Rogue River. There's a gate there, and it's supposed to be locked at the end of October, but the Bureau of Land Management somehow forgot there was a mistake, and it was open. The Kims continued to drive on this road until roughly 2 a.m. when the snow was just so deep, it was snowing much harder. They came to this, what looked like a T intersection. They decided to park their car. Their hopes were that a plow would come by or a ranger would come by. They would see them there. They were trying to conserve gas because they were down to roughly half a tank, so they left their parking lights on and the heater on, and they fell asleep. They woke up a couple hours later. It was actually raining out, which gave them a small sense of relief, although they knew that they would have to go back through the deep snow area to get out. Because of this, they decided to stay put. They decided to try and conserve their gas, food, and water. They thought they heard snowplows nearby, so they thought that it would be any time that one of them would drive by or a ranger would come by. They realized that it was actually the sound of the Rogue River. This is the Rogue River. Apparently it has a very deep roar to it in many areas. The morning of November 26th, when they woke up, they saw this small gate near where they had parked. There was, of course, a lot more snow. It had started snowing again. James Kim actually wrote a note in crayon. That's the only thing they had. He said, 2 young babies, low on gas, low on food. He put it in a Ziploc bag and stuck it to that gate, hoping someone would see it and come by. Sadly, no one did, and that was the first full day and night that the Kims would stay parked in the car there. They were very smart. Kati Kim took some of the baby bottles. She put snow in them and let the sun warm them during the day so they would have fresh drinking water. Their main concern was the children. Katie was able to breastfeed them both, and the adults, they had some snacks. They had some Cheese Whiz, some crackers, the soda, the chocolate bars that they had bought from the gas station. This went on over the course of the next 3 days, and by the 4th day, they were wondering if anybody would have reported them missing. They also had run out of gas. They weren't sure what they were going to do. They were starting to panic. They tried to keep their wits about them. They went out. They wrote SOS in the snow. They would often yell into the sky for help. They honked the horn a lot. They couldn't believe that there was no other cars coming by, so they started to study the map that they had, and it was at this point they realized there was this tiny little box up in the corner that said, "Caution, these roads may be not traveled due to weather or snow conditions." That was when they really realized that no one was going to come looking for them. Little did they know, though, by the 3rd day, the house sitter that they had reported them missing to the San Francisco Police Department. Of course, the Kims had no way of knowing that, so they continued to do whatever they could to survive. What James did was he built a small camp, he built a fire ring, and he burnt the spare tire. He knew that it would create this plume of black smoke, which he thought someone had to see. By December 1st, the couple had taken off the other 4 tires and put them into the fire too, hoping that it would continue this signal fire, and someone just had to see it. How could they not? I mean, it would just be seen for miles, yet no one came. What was so frustrating and beyond heartbreaking for this family at this point was, right as this massive signal fire started dying down and there was little smoke, they started hearing helicopters pass over. So they frantically tried to find anything else they could put to make the signal fire big again, but it didn't work. By the 6th morning of their ordeal, the couple was beyond tired, hungry. They started getting angry at each other. Katie was mad at James for getting them lost. James wanted to set out and look for help. She didn't want him to, however, he insisted. He left their campsite at exactly 7:46 a.m. that Saturday morning, and he promised he would be back by 1 p.m. He thought they were only around 4 miles from the town of Gallus. Sadly, James did not return by 1 p.m. In fact, he didn't come back at all, and she had to spend the night with her kids alone. She was terrified. She didn't know what had happened to him. The next morning, she got up. She literally strapped her 2 kids to herself and started walking. She was going to try and find a way out. At roughly 3 hours into this journey, she turned back. She was too weak. She barely eaten. She had no real water with her at the time. Then she heard a helicopter go over, so it gave her a little bit of hope. The next day, Monday, December 4th, she heard the helicopter again and saw it. So she started using the car's vanity mirror to signal it. She then saw the helicopter turn around and start circling. She had this umbrella that she had put pink circles on, so she started waving that around. More helicopters arrived. They dropped food and supplies to her. They eventually landed and she was rescued. She and her 2 babies were rescued. It was then, though, that she found out that they hadn't found James, and she was hysterical. She wanted to know where he was. This is the helicopter pilot that saved Kati Kim that day. He wasn't officially part of the search and rescue team, although he later joined them. He was flying his own private helicopter, and he had a feeling that they might be in this area, and he was the one that rescued her. Of course, Kati then learned about the search and rescue that was going on for her. They started a massive search for James. This is a picture of the area where their car was parked. They cordoned that off, of course. They were looking, but the search and rescue was a big mess from the beginning. Everybody that was involved, the different teams, couldn't decide that who was in charge, so a lot of important facts got missed. Here's some more maps. We're going to discuss them further, but these are some more maps of the area, the search that went on. That's a picture of where Kati Kim was found with her 2 daughters. These are pictures of the various search and the various teams that were involved in the investigation. The search and rescue for James Kim went on for the next 2 days, 24 hours a day, multiple agencies from all over the state, hundreds of volunteers, which is normally a great thing. But in this particular search and rescue effort, many of the people at the top weren't communicating with each other. Some of the commanders had animosity towards each other for some reason. Unfortunately, this did lead to a lot of errors in this search and rescue for Mr. James Kim. Sadly, roughly 2 days later, James Kim was found deceased about 20 miles away from where the family's vehicle was. Here's a map to show you up at the top where the 2 is. That's where the family car was found. The 3 with the dotted line, that shows the path where James Kim had went to try and get help. It is unknown why he went down back towards the other way instead of heading back east. I'm sure he was exhausted and he was just trying to find help for his family. He was just dedicated to saving his family. Despite all that was going on with the established search and rescue groups, the volunteers and the family members were amazing. Hundreds of volunteers came in. Family members actually rented their own helicopters to go out looking for him. One of the big mistakes in this search and rescue was the cell phone pings. The search and rescue commanders didn't really look into that, and then there was this whole back and forth between them and the sheriff's office. This actually ended up leading to a statewide investigation, and there were actually some state laws changed in direct result from the mishaps of the search and rescue in this case. Especially because after Kati Kim was rescued and started sharing her story, the media coverage was insane. The whole nation was covering the story, and then more information came out about various things that happened and didn't happen during the search and rescue efforts, as well as basic things like why wasn't that gate locked by the Bureau of Land Management. Then there was one of James' co-workers and good friends that called the search and rescue people and told them about the cell phone pings and how he could help. Whoever received that call didn't pass it on. It didn't get spoken to until days later. And of course, the house sitter that was sitting for this family didn't report them missing until almost 4 days after they were supposed to be home. Mr. Ranker, the helicopter pilot who saved Kati Kim and her children, he ultimately went on to be a very successful search and rescue volunteer, as well as he went around and put up these signs on those roads so that people would know how dangerous they were. What started out what was supposed to be a roughly 6-hour drive to a nice lodge after they had Thanksgiving with their friends ended up being a 9-day ordeal for this family, and James lost his life. I mean, I just can't imagine what all of them went through. Being stuck out in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, having these 2 young children with them. The sheriff and even the governor at the time said it was a miracle that Kati and her children were found and that they were in relatively good health. They really had to stay in the hospital for a day, but of course James lost his life. He was so young and his children never got the chance to know him. My thoughts and prayers go out to that whole family. I hope and pray that you have found peace with what happened, and I am so sorry for your loss. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your comments, your support, your feedback. You know I love hearing from you, so please leave me a comment if you can. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music. Hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me to the end. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I'd love to hear about how your Thanksgiving was, what you have planned for Christmas, what kind of outdoor adventures you may have coming up. I also wanted to say thank you again for all your support, your patience with me and the channel. I'm still having some cognitive and some memory issues, but definitely doing a lot better. Your support means so much to me, and I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate it. If you have any case or video suggestions that you want me to do, just leave me a comment. All right, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. See you in the next one.